we thought about who would be a good person to talk about why equity matters. And we thought about Reggie Gordon. We know Reggie, he is native to Richmond. His work throughout the city of Richmond is extensive. Currently, the Deputy Chief Administrative Officer for the city of Richmond. Many of us know his work with the Office of Community Wealth Building. So we're going to spend some time now listening to Reggie Gordon and talk about why equity matters. So Carpenter Theater, please show your appreciation for Reggie Gordon. He's good. Make sure you're straight.
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you, Todd. Hello, everybody. I am a compassion broker, community wealth builder. I've been around a while, and I have all the answers. I'm glad you laughed, because I was just kidding about that. I don't have all the answers. I have been around a while. I know Richmond. I know many of the people in this room, and I'm glad we get to see each other again. And I do feel that we have the resources, the energy, and the tools to transform our region. I think it's time for us to be deliberate. As we've heard over and over again in our past, people were deliberate. It's time for us to be deliberate about the future we want to see. So many of us want to usher in a new era of innovation and collaboration in the region. So, as you know, I'm a public servant. My portfolio with the City of Richmond includes social services, parks and rec and community facilities, justice services, the Office of Immigrant and Refugee Engagement, the Office of Equity and Inclusion, and the Office of Community Wealth Building. My first job when I came to the city 5 years ago was the director of the Office of Community Wealth Building. Now that director is Capricia Spellman. Are you in the room, Capricia? Yay, please stand. I know it's, so there is a new, very capable, impressive director. Richmond has struggled for decades with poverty. City leaders decided to address this problem with intentionality years ago. Councilwoman Ellen Robertson and the former Mayor Dwight Jones created the Anti-Poverty Commission, and some of you in this room probably served on the Anti-Poverty Commission. It was comprised of a cross-section of leaders in our community. I was on the commission as well, examined the barriers and the challenges and recommended solutions to address some of those barriers and challenges. One of the recommendations was to embed an office within city government whose function was to implement the recommendations. That's the origin of the Office of Community Wealth Building. The Office of Community Wealth Building, Richmond, is the first office of its kind in the nation. After it was created, people came to visit Richmond from New York and Philadelphia and other places in Virginia to say, you all are really aligning yourselves in a way that we haven't seen before, and our city wants to replicate that. So now there are other offices of community wealth building throughout the US, but the first one was right here. Mayor Stoney continued and expanded the Office of Community Wealth Building, all the while propelling this work toward how do we reduce the poverty rate by a certain time with a comprehensive look at the structures and systems that have been barriers. Thousands upon thousands of Richmonders have come to the Office of Community Wealth Building for career planning and job training in an effort to rise up the economic ladder to self-sufficiency. The office and other partners in Richmond actually won a Robert Wood Johnson Foundation Cultural Health Prize in 2017. The prize was awarded to a community, Richmond, that is doing innovative initiatives so that every person has an equal opportunity to live the healthiest life they can. When I was at the Office of Community Wealth Building, when I walked in the door, we had a really strong staff. What we felt was missing was the voice of the people. We'd had the commission and we'd had research and lots of pilots about how to help people move forward. We wanted to make sure we had the voices of the people included in our work strategy. So on Fridays, we would have listening sessions We had the staff around the table, and we would invite anyone in that wanted to share their thoughts or opinions about how to rise up the economic ladder. Usually, these were people who were experiencing those crises. One day, one Friday, a woman came in, sat around the table, and told us her story about the hardships she felt or experienced as she tried to make her way through Richmond. She was stressed, and it was a really tense, heavy conversation. And so I, trying to lighten the mood, at the conclusion of her story, I said, Miss Jones, tell us about your dreams. She looked me in the eye and said, Mr. Gordon, I don't dream. When I leave here, I have to figure out how I'm gonna have food for my family and my kids for the weekend. There's a church that might have a meals program. I'm gonna try to get 2 extra dinners so I can make it through the weekend. As you can imagine, I felt embarrassed. I was embarrassed that I asked her about her dreams. And I realized that was due to my privilege. I just thought most people, everyone, had the latitude to dream and to hope. But now I know, based on how she reacted to me, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people in Richmond, in our region, who don't dream. So here I am today, standing on the stage, and that feeling I had when she responded that way still affects me. So I've been questioning our life journey, my life journey, your life journey. So I want to pull you into something right now, and I'm going to ask you to stand up and answering some questions, but let me tell you what the questions are so you can get ready to stand up. I'm going to ask you 3 questions, and these are about your life. I'm going to tell you what they are now, and then I'm going to repeat them and then ask you to stand. The first one will be, think back about a time in your life where you have either loaned or borrowed $400 from someone. The next question, has anyone ever written a reference letter or made a phone call to help you get into a school, a job, or a business opportunity? And the last question, do you know someone who appears to you to be financially stable? Ready? Now, when you keep standing after you answer the question. If your answer is yes to the next question, just raise your hand. So please stand if you can think about a time in your life when you have loaned or borrowed $400 from a friend, a family, colleague. Thank you. Keep standing. Have you ever had anyone write a reference letter for you, make a phone call to help you get into a school, a job, or a business opportunity? And finally, do you know someone who appears to be financially stable? That could be you. Okay, thank you. All right, let me tell you why I did that. Please, thank you for answering those questions. All right, so in our effort to sort of understand the people that we serve, these are the questions that beginning January of last year, we began to ask some of our success stories. And this probably will not surprise you. I mentioned hundreds of people that we deal with. We didn't have a sample of hundreds, but we had just enough people, 20 plus or so, and then we asked these questions at other times. No to every one of those questions. No. So I began to think, there's a game that we play in this country, the American dream, I guess the way Chetty framed it, Dr. Chetty framed it. The goal is to have enough money to pay all your bills, put money in savings, have disposable income, and leave a legacy for your children. The goal is to protect and grow your assets, get with your property, dividends, savings. If you want it, you need to get it. And the person who has the best assets or most assets usually gets to make the rules about how to hold on to those assets. And if you can't figure out how to play the game, that's really your problem. The rules cannot be easily interpreted if you don't know someone who plays the game well. And if you break a rule, you go to jail. That's it. And if you are not creditworthy, that's it. If you are born into a family with two high-functioning parents and a house in a neighborhood with money and savings, then you get to start ahead of the rest of the players. These are the rules of the game. You get dealt your hand at birth: parents, neighborhood, education, race, creditworthiness, sexuality, wealth. So here's the hand I got dealt. I grew up in a household with two married professional parents, a teacher and a minister. They both had college degrees. Most of my immediate family either had education of trade or military backgrounds. I cannot think of a single family member who'd been to jail, 15 uncles and aunts, dozens of cousins. I was a member of a church, a Baptist church, that provided loving, affirming environment every Sunday. They promoted education and sent money to all the youth who went off to college. I lived in a Black neighborhood, Battery Park. My neighbors and their families looked just like my family. Parents working hard, parents and the PTA. We went on vacation, we always had food, we always had clothes, and we always had cars, I went to Richmond Public Schools back in the 70s, where most of my teachers and principals and guidance counselors looked like me. I had Black male teachers. The mayor at that time was a Black man. The conversations, however, around my dinner table at home were not about wealth or assets, but they were about the importance of deportment and character. So, you have your own story, that's my story. But we need to respect each other's story because we all start from different places. That's why equity matters. And our diversity is our strength. That's why we need to have a shared values summit, because I'm sure we have shared values. Now, our response to this diversity in Richmond is to come closer together. And the community wealth building framework is that ethos. It's how we can sort of weave together and neutralize some of the things that we just heard Dr. Chetty mention. This is why equity matters. We have hundreds of people in this community who care, who believe in these shared values, who want to make things right. I'm so excited about our strategic plan for equitable economic development that came out of the city of Richmond with Sharon Ebert and Leonard Sledge. We have solutions. We want to find the solutions. We want to work together not only with human services solutions, but business solutions. I believe Richmond is ready. And we need to listen to the people, to everybody. What Dr. Chetty doesn't know is we're ahead of the curve here with friends in Richmond. If you didn't know this, later on in a break or today, look up Befriend. Befriend is a homegrown way that we connect people who might not ordinarily see each other, whose paths might not cross. Molly Reinhardt, who I think is in the room. Are you in the room, Molly? Hi, Molly. Putting you on the spot there. Okay, Molly Reinhardt, I knew her just from working with St. Christopher's years ago, and she came to our office when I was at the Office of Community Wealth Building and said, I want to do more. I'm on boards, I volunteer, but I still feel that Richmond has these patterns where I don't see the evolution or transformation of neighborhoods, and what can I do? So we talked about it for quite some time, and she came up with the idea of Befriend. This is a simple, it's not a program, it's just making friends with people you don't know. And I'm gonna read you some words from Molly, because she has a special friend named JoJo. And Molly, fearless as she is, walked up to a stranger named JoJo at the Walmart. And she just said hello. And she was a little nervous, of course, about talking to a stranger who looked nothing like her, a young African-American woman. And they started to talk more and more, and she learned that JoJo was looking for job opportunities, and Molly knew about our office, and Molly brought her to City Hall, to the Office of Community Wealth Building, and actually sat through some classes with her just to make sure she was comfortable. She cheered her on, and that was years ago. And now this is what has happened now. They are best friends. JoJo moved out of public housing into her own home. She now earns a living wage as a nurse's aide. She has a car. Her son is thriving in third grade. Her son was recently recommended for the gifted program at his school. She made a special phone call to Molly to tell her that news. She's the kind of friend that calls Molly to check on her about Molly's mother. They actually are friends. This is not a mentor-mentee relationship. This is what Dr. Chetty just described. Richmond is a medium-sized city, and we have created a process called Befriend, which is accessible to all of us if you're willing to put in the investment. And it's uncomfortable. It's talking to someone who, you wouldn't normally see at your place of worship, at work, and your grocery store. It takes effort, but it can be done. And when you look it up, you'll see how Molly has created ways to onboard to meet new people. Molly says that her friendship and partnership with Office of Community Wealth Building allows her to share valuable resources and provide personal encouragement and support to lift people up. JoJo's not Molly's only friend. And these are Molly's words, it's about celebrating our common humanity. Common humanity and compassion, that's the key. And here, I'm just gonna run through a list of all the great things that are happening in Richmond that relate to that. The BLISS program, Building Lives to Independence and Self-Sufficiency. That's a program through the Office of Community Wealth Building. There actually was a documentary done called Heard by Bell Towers Pictures in partnership with VPM, which described the lives and experiences of some of those BLISS participants. So Richmond, Virginia won an Emmy for this work through that movie, that documentary. What you'll see in that documentary is what we have heard from people that we've talked to that I mentioned with the Office of Community Wealth Building. It's grit. People, when we talk to them about how do they navigate through to success in our system, they say, the programs are there, the services are there, tremendously accessible and compassionate nonprofits, all that's there. The person who needs the help just needs to be ready to fully accept it and embrace it. That was a little bit surprising to us because we usually think we need more services, we need more programs, we need more. We're like, no, it's all here. Don't create a brand new thing. It's just, you have to find it within yourself to walk forward, walk toward it. And it could be that if you don't have a friend who will encourage you to say, it's gonna be difficult, but I'll hold your hand and keep moving forward. Most people have said they don't know people like that. Just like we stood up earlier, they don't know folks who navigated the pathway. And so since there's no cross-pollination, it's an echo chamber. So in Richmond, a city of this size, here's the solution. Bring down those barriers, make it more porous. So we have people who don't know each other, who may have just by some, because of the hand you dealt, you're able to thrive. Share that with someone who might not have had such a successful hand. We have the Richmond Resilience Initiative. As we speak, Richmond is in Community Wealth Building. The mayor is in Atlanta, representing Richmond because we have 18 families plus 46 families who are part of a national pilot to see if guaranteed basic income is the key to catapulting people up the economic ladder. This program, for the past 2 years with the 18 families, has provided $500 a month, $500 a month for them to do what they want to do with the money. Not a program, this is just extra cash. The results will come out later because it is a national pilot and I can't disclose what we're learning as of yet because it needs to be revealed publicly and professionally later, but just a hint, you'll be amazed. People are less stressed, and able to help their friend, neighbor, mother, brother when they need $100 or $200 or $400. We have another success story. We have regional collaborations in Richmond now. My colleagues in Human Services in Richmond, Henrico and Chesterfield and Hanover, we meet once a month. We talk all the time. Monica Smith Callahan from Henrico, James Worsley from Chesterfield, Jim Taylor from Hanover. Another success story. Virginia Union has adopted Gilpin Court, the Gilpin community for 20 years. It's this extended walking with the neighborhood so that we don't have episodic interactions, but long-term interactions. And I know many of you in this room have personal stories about people that you help on a daily basis. Unsung heroes, folks, whether in your family or not, that you know you've opened that door, you've loaned them that money, and now they're stable. That happens all the time in Richmond, I know. And I'm gonna bring this to a close soon, but I wanna say two more things. It's time for us to really be intentional about sharing our information. We talk about this a lot, but it's clear. If we're touching the lives of children, what's happening with the entire family? Who deals with the mother? Who deals with the dad? Who deals with the other kids? Who's their mentor? Who's their Molly? That we can say, hey, we've gone as far as we can professionally, but maybe you can just continue to coach this person and this family as they move forward. We need those kinds of champions. And of course, we already have a wonderful resource in Help One RVA, in case you don't know about it, that's anchored at the YMCA. That's a listing of all of the services and programs in Richmond, and you can search them by zip code. And we want more organizations, in fact, all organizations, to put your data in there so that whether you do it yourself or with a case manager or with a friend, you can find out the best way to move up the economic ladder. In closing, this call to action. Proximity. Proximity is key, and it's ironic that the pandemic sort of moved us apart, but we're coming back together. But what the pandemic did show us was the inequities that are perennial in our community for some of our neighbors who've had to navigate life without ample resources all of their lives. The government, nonprofits, the faith community, foundations, and lone citizens have stepped up to keep people alive and housed and fed during these past years. If there were ever any doubt, it has now become abundantly clear that we definitely need each other in order to survive. Our collective urgent task is to build pathways that will afford all citizens the ability to journey from crisis to thriving. We have had some success, of course, but there is much more work to do. We must rally together as a legion of like-minded, collaborative, action-oriented people who don't need to be praised for our participation, but instead find affirmation in seeing our shared values and goals achieved. We can achieve this for thousands of Richmonders, from new immigrants to longtime residents, rising up the economic ladder to thriving, experiencing the freedom to make their own choices about housing, healthcare, food, education, and opportunities for their children. We can do this, Richmond. Start with your own family. Not even a stranger, your own family. Make sure that folks in your family are stably housed and food secure and employed and on the right track. Then branch out to the families in your neighborhood, then your congregation. And next, offer your time and resources to existing organizations to make sure that we can have a stronger community. I don't know if you noticed, but for the past year, there were these big banners on City Hall. They were called the Freedom Constellation banners. They just were taken down 2 days ago. Hopefully we won't have Ian coming through, but we just wanted to take the banners down to avoid any catastrophes. But on those banners, we had pictures of two kids from Richmond Public Schools. And it was a joint art installation with a collaboration from the city, Dominion, Altria, Venture Richmond, Richmond Tourism, the John Marshall House, Performing Statistics, and the Valentine. And it had augmented reality. So when you held your phone up to the banners, you would hear the kids talking about their dreams. the banner said, the biggest word you could see on the banner was dream. And when I thought about speaking to you all today, I realized how poignant that was, that's what we want. We want a community where our young people, older people, people new to this community, all know how to dream. Thank you, Richmond.